You are 26 years old, and you think you are doing everything right because you got the raise. You earn $58,000 a year as a marketing coordinator at a regional healthcare company in North Carolina. You asked for more money and they gave it to you. You negotiated. You feel sharp. You put $500 a month into savings now instead of $300. You feel like you are building something. You have no idea that the ceiling you are climbing toward is the floor of the life you actually want. This is the version of your life where the raise is the plan. A salary is an agreement. You trade a fixed number of hours for a fixed number of dollars. The company sets both sides of that equation. They set the hours, they set the dollars. Every raise you receive is a renegotiation of a deal they wrote. You are improving your position inside a system designed to compensate you for your time and never for your output. The people who design that system do not receive salaries. They receive equity, they receive distributions, they receive returns on capital they deployed when the risk was highest and the price was lowest. You receive a direct deposit on the 1st and 15th. Inflation this year is 3.6%. Your raise was 4.1%. You felt like you won. In real terms, you moved forward by half a percentage point. Meanwhile, the equity in the company you work for appreciated 22% this year. The executives who own it did not negotiate for that. It happened while they slept. Your savings account is earning 0.04% annually. Your $500 per month is eroding in purchasing power the moment it lands. You call this building wealth. This is not building wealth. This is a very organized way of staying in place. Across town, someone your age is doing something different. Not smarter, not richer. They started with less. Someone handed them a conversation or a book or a single moment of clarity, and that information changed how they see every dollar that passes through their hands. They know the difference between earned income and passive income. They know that a salary taxes you at the highest rate possible. They know that the assets they own will never be taxed until they choose. They know that time is the resource being spent on both sides of this equation, and only one of them gets it back. They are building something that earns while they sleep. You are building a resume. Then something happens. It does not feel like a turning point. It feels like a Tuesday. Your company brings in a consultant. He is 41. He works for himself. He billed the company $22,000 for 2 weeks of work. You did the math on the flight home from the off-site. That is more than you earn in 5 months. You ask someone how he got there. They say he just went out on his own. You go home and stare at the ceiling. The number does not leave you. $22,000? 2 weeks. You earn $58,000 in a year and feel like you are winning. This is where the two versions of your life begin to separate permanently. In the first version, without the knowledge, you go back to work on Monday and let the number fade. You tell yourself he has years of experience. You tell yourself it is not realistic. You ask your manager about the path to senior coordinator. She says 2 years, maybe 18 months if you perform. You perform. You become senior coordinator at $67,000. You feel good. You are 28. You put more into savings. You buy a slightly nicer car. You finance it over 60 months. You are 31 when you finally make manager at $78,000. The title feels significant. The salary feels significant. The gap between you and real wealth is now wider than it was at 26. Because you spent 5 years optimizing your position inside the wrong system. In the second version, the version where you did not let that number fade, you spend the next 8 months reading. You read about freelancing, about consulting, about how income can be decoupled from hours. You read about tax structures, about the difference between W-2 income and business income, about how the rules were written differently for people who own things versus people who work for people who own things. You learn that a salaried employee is the most taxed participant in the entire economy. Every dollar you earn is taxed before you touch it. Every business expense you could deduct as an owner is paid with post-tax dollars because you are not an owner. You learn that the consultant who billed $22,000 did not just earn more. He operated under an entirely different set of rules. You start with one client. You do it evenings and weekends. You make $1,400 in your first month outside the salary. It is not clean. It is not comfortable. It does not feel like a raise. It feels like working two jobs. You keep going. The second month is $2,100. The third is $3,800. At month 7, you are earning more outside your salary than inside it. You leave at 27. Your former manager asks if you are sure. You are sure. The next 2 years teach you things the salary never could. You learn that revenue is not income. You learn that pricing is a signal, not just a number. You learn that your rate rising does not repel clients, it attracts better ones. You learn that the anxiety of a salary, the dependence on a single counterparty, the fear of the performance review was not security. It was exposure disguised as stability. A salary feels safe because it is predictable. It is the most fragile income structure that exists. One decision by someone above you and it disappears entirely. At 29, you bring in $210,000. You structure it through an s-corp. Your effective tax rate is lower than it was when you earned $58,000 as an employee. The tax code rewards ownership. You are now an owner. You reinvest $60,000 into an index portfolio, not because someone told you to, because you understand compounding now the way you understand breathing. It is not a concept. It is a force operating on your assets every single day without your involvement. At 31, you purchase a small commercial property with 2 other investors. You contribute $40,000. Your share of the annual cash flow is $7,200. You did not work for that $7,200. The tenants worked. The property worked. The debt your tenants are servicing worked. You are beginning to understand what the people who do not receive salaries have always understood. Capital earns, labor charges. These are not the same thing. By 34, your consulting practice has evolved into a small agency with 4 contractors. You are no longer trading time. You are building a system that generates revenue whether or not you are present. Your income is now $380,000. A portion of it arrives on the first of the month regardless of whether you worked. You remember the feeling of the direct deposit at $58,000 and what you called security. You understand now that you were not secure. You were dependent. You do not think about salaries very often anymore. Occasionally, a former colleague reaches out. They are making $92,000 now. They negotiated hard. They are proud. You feel something that is not quite pity. You remember the ceiling that felt like progress. The 4.1% raise in a year when your portfolio returned 18%. The direct deposit that felt like building something. You were not wrong to feel proud then. You were working with the information you had. The information was incomplete. Financial systems are not designed to be explained to the people operating inside them at the bottom. A workforce that understands the difference between earned income and capital gains makes different decisions. A workforce that understands the tax treatment of business ownership negotiates differently. A workforce that understands how wealth actually accumulates does not accept the terms it is offered. The system is not a conspiracy. It is simply a set of rules that rewards those who know them and extracts from those who do not. You understood this, the way you understand a game you once played without knowing the rules. You were 26 before anyone explained the difference between a W-2 and a Schedule C. You were 27 before you understood that your employer's equity appreciation had nothing to do with your salary. You were 28 before you understood that the raise you were chasing was a rounding error compared to the returns available to people operating on the other side of the ledger. The wealthy do not get richer by earning more. They own things that earn. Equity stakes, cash-flowing real estate, royalty streams, business systems that operate without them present. The gap between that model and the salary model is not moral. It is mechanical, and it is completely learnable. Now you are 38. Your net worth crossed $2.1 million last year. You did not inherit it. You did not get lucky. You restructured the way income moved through your hands, And you started early enough for the math to work. 7 people depend on your agency for their income. 43 companies have worked with you across 12 years. You have declined acquisition offers twice. The second offer was $4.4 million. You declined because the income stream is worth more owned than sold. You know the version of yourself in North Carolina, earning $58,000, celebrating a 4.1% raise, falling quietly behind. The difference between those two versions of your life was not intelligence, it was not work ethic. It was one moment of clarity that you chose not to let fade. One question you kept pulling at instead of putting down. The rules were always learnable. The structure was always understandable. The system was always available to those who knew where to look. You just needed someone to hand you the first piece. Somewhere right now, someone is staring at their pay stub. They worked hard this month. They are proud of the number. They do not yet see the ceiling. They will open something, read something, hear something, and the question will arrive. What if the salary is not the goal? What if the salary is the trap? The moment they ask that question and don't look away, the curve begins. It starts with a single piece of information. It always does.